Hello, lovely people. This is Dimple Mehta, and you are listening to our quest. And today we are going to discuss about how to balance work and spirituality. If you haven't already, please give us a quick review and rating on Apple Podcasts. And don't forget, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Links in description. I am always grateful to you for taking out the time to listen to this, and I hope this episode further contributes towards each of your growth. We have a super special guest joining us today. He is my number one person, my partner at work, the love of my life, my husband, and father to my baby, Mohit Mehta. Thank you for being with us here today, and thank you for doing this. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It's indeed a pleasure to be here today.
How do you feel?
I'm excited. This topic is really close to me, and you have seen that, and we have journeyed together on this. So I'm really excited to share a few things that we've discovered on our way here.
That's absolutely right. It's rather been like quite some years that we started on this journey where we realized that we have to make some spiritual progress, and we have been trying our level best, right? Whatever length we have achieved till date, there's a far way to go. Yeah.
Of course, there's a long way to go. I don't know if we've done our best, but I'm sure we've done some things.
Definitely. Interesting bit about today is that whatever we are going to discuss is based on what our listeners have asked. These questions have been raised by people I have interacted with recently: friends, family, colleagues, clients, and my favorite listeners. So here we are on the quest to seek answers to them. Shooting the first question right in: what do you mean by spirituality?
All right, before we discuss what is spirituality, first we need to understand and acknowledge that your life, my life, all our lives have a greater meaning and existence than just body, flesh, money, hatred, pleasure, revenge, job, pride, family. In other words, it is acceptance that you have a larger purpose than your everyday mundane existence. It is a shift of your awareness from an unconscious being to a conscious being, more like a more aware state of mind, where you see exactly what is in front of you without bias, emotions, and different energies. Now, it is a certain way of being, but let's not confuse it with any particular religious practice. They are two different things, and it cannot be confused, religion and spirituality. So in spirituality, it's a certain way of being. Consider this: consider a garden in your home, and if the soil, the sunlight, and the stem of the plant are not aligned in a certain manner, the plant will not yield flowers. So if we cultivate our body, our mind, our emotions and energies at a certain level, at a certain alignment, something blossoms within us. And that is the beginning path to spirituality.
Beautifully articulated. And I totally agree that spirituality does not belong to any particular culture or religion. It doesn't matter from which culture you come from, it doesn't matter what religion you practice. On a spiritual journey, we can all embark on. It's nothing but being in sync with our souls, simply put. Yeah. It's being more aware about our soul. It's embarking on a journey with our soul because our soul is right there to guide us.
Yes.
But then we always find it difficult to make time for our spiritual needs or our spiritual growth in the busy hustle that we are all in. So, how to make time for the spiritual growth when the life is so busy?
A rather relevant question, that is, how to make time. Most of us take refuge under that question, don't we? For all the tasks that we consider unimportant and not urgent. It's all about priorities. Let me ask you this: do you shower every day? Do you eat your meals every day? Do you sleep every day? Do you socialize? Do you not raise our child every day? How do you take out time for all of that? And to think of it, we don't even end our day until all the tasks on our priority list are completed. Why do we have time for everything else than the one thing that fuels us, enlightens us, and improves us? Our soul. The problem is when we think of taking the first step to being spiritual, at least this was the problem with me, is that I used to immediately picturize mountains, monks, sitting still for hours by leaving normal human life. And that's why I would never be able to find time. And then I started doing something very simple. I used to take out 10 minutes of my day in my home, in my office, and just be with myself. Not 1 hour on one day in 1 month. It is 10 minutes every single day, consistently. And that is the key to spiritual growth.
Absolutely. And I think that has worked for me as well. When you think of spirituality as being a monk or leaving the world and detaching from everything, it seems so big and heavy that you feel like I'm not going to embark on that journey. I would rather probably binge watch some series or go out party with my friends or whatever. But when that awakening comes and you realize that you can embark on a spiritual growth, a journey for your spirit, for your soul, along with doing whatever you're doing otherwise, you can't wait to get on it. And it just takes as little as 10 minutes. I wouldn't go to sleep, I wouldn't go to bed if I haven't taken out those 10 minutes just to be with myself. And that's how it has worked for me as well, because that solitude is really really a fun place to be. Which brings me to the third question: what to do when work requires us to do something that we may not agree with spiritually?
That's a brilliant question. Remember a few years ago, we were battling such a question at every decision we made in our businesses, right? And we were in that progress of adventure in terms of meditating every day. And, but yet we had to coexist with what we were doing on a general activity day to day. So, and at that point in time, we were at a big crossroad. We were at a juncture where we had to decide a couple of things, take a lot of hard decisions, if you will. And I have a few questions that we used at back in that time, a few questions that we actually asked to help us to make the right decisions. And so if you're stuck at that crossroad, a few of these questions may help you, your listeners. So the first one: are you making this decision based on your bias towards the person or the situation at the current scenario? So that's great because that helps you go past the emotional cloud that you may have. And the second question you could ask is this decision going to unethically harm the other person, the other situation at hand? The third question: did I provide all my requirements, all my needs in a clear manner at the beginning? Did I orient everything that I need before I take a strong move? And the fourth one: is this decision going to fulfill my personal need or well being or of the organizations? And if you're still unable to come to a conclusion after asking these questions, speak to somebody you trust. that is not involved in the situation, and free from their personal bias, to ensure that you're making a decision which is right, which is for the greater good of everybody involved in that particular situation.
That's an amazing way to rationalize it, and I can't think of a better way to put it into a rational process of thinking. My approach, however, has always been slightly different from this. That's been my approach. Some people may or may not like it, because it's not very logical. Whenever I'm at that crossroad, I rely 100% on my spiritual intuitions or guidance or whatever my soul is telling me to do. It may or may not seem like that would be beneficial, but believe me, till date, I have never encountered a loss by listening to what my soul is telling me to do. It doesn't always make logical sense. It doesn't always make conscious sense, uh, but it always feels like that's the right thing to do.
Well, that's great. I mean, that shows that you've done some work on yourself. That shows that you are listening to the voice coming from within. And when you sit for those 10 minutes every day, the voice becomes more evident. The voice exactly knows what needs to be done, and then you start doing things more clearly. Then your actions are more aligned, and you rather, I mean, I'm sure you have noticed it, that you're not so confused as well, because you know exactly what needs to be done. And the voice that comes within from within you is talking to you, and you are able to listen to that voice because you are able to silence all your other thoughts. Easier said than done. Yes, I mean, on a normal day, it's really difficult to silence our thoughts, but you can get there. One can get there with those 10 minutes every day.
That's a great, great highlight from your side. Noises. In our normal human life, we have so many noises going on inside our minds. It's about the finances, about the family, about the friends. Oh, my kid's school, or probably a sickness that my parent is going through, some crisis that I may be going through, health issues. So many noises at any given point of time that may disconnect us from listening to our powerful spirit. And that's why the spiritual growth is really important, because when you're able to connect with your spirit and when you're able to listen to your spirit by keeping those noises quiet for even a little bit, you have a guide with you at any given point of time. And that helps you progress in whatever work it is that you're doing.
Absolutely. Well said. It is, however, as we discussed, it is, however, very difficult to silence those noises. In fact, if you're going to say, I want to silence these noises, chances are they're going to quadruple or come back to you in 10 times, multifolds. So it is evidently boiling down to those 10 minutes. And if you're able to extend those 10 minutes to 15, maybe 30 minutes every day, that's great. But like I said, consistency is key. And if we skip a day, we go back to day zero. It's not going back -1, -2. It's going back to day zero.
Absolutely. So it's basically that state of awakening, that state of being attuned to yourself, and being in that spiritual journey and keeping on progressing and growing. Can can detachment that we learn through our spiritual growth, can detachment exist while being actively involved with our goals and ambitions that we pursue?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, detachment really helps us when the going gets tough, when things don't go our way, when we see failure after failure. Detachment really helps us at that point in time, because it helps us to keep a sane mind. However, let's not confuse spirituality, spiritual growth, with no ambition or no goals. Us embarking on a spiritual journey itself, in itself, is a goal, in itself is an ambition. So detachment really helped us a few years ago, didn't it? When we were struggling to see beyond our emotions towards a business that we had started together after our marriage, and the business was not doing as we expected it to be. And that's why we spent all our time of the prime years, the first 2 years of our marriage, into that business, emotionally devoted, and getting failure after failure, and not knowing where we are headed. And after a lot of soul searching that we did, were we able to finally remove the emotional cloud
Absolutely.
away. And ever since, the business is doing fantastically well.
Yeah, it's surprising that the moment we detached our emotions from the business picked up.
Yes. So detachment helps with worldly goals and ambitions. In a simpler way, we will face failures, but with detachment, with that awareness of mind, I would say, with that, with seeing what exactly is in front of us, using every failure as an opportunity, that comes with a lot of awareness, that comes with a lot of detachment. Because if you're emotional about that situation, you will never see the opportunity that a failure brought you. And that detachment is crucial. And that's why, with more awakening, with more awareness, we are able to detach ourselves with the unnecessary chatter that deviates us from our goals and ambitions.
Absolutely. And the way I practice it personally is by keeping the difference between me and my soul. Who am I? Is what I tell myself, and I remind myself every time when I start to get attached to something, and I have to keep myself detached from something, a situation, a person, or whatever. I just remind myself, who am I? I am my soul. This is Dimple. But the soul's not Dimple. Dimple is this person who's speaking right now, but the soul is separate from Dimple. Dimple is just this form in which I exist. But there's a soul that guides me, that's my spirit, and that's separate from the Dimple that I am. That helps me in keeping my detachment from every situation, and it really eases a lot of my problems, solves a lot of my problems. Bringing us to the final question for today: can spiritual growth help in financial growth?
All right, a way to wrap the show up. Uh, can spirituality or spiritual growth help in financial growth? Well, by now, I think we've spoken enough on the power that lies within spiritual growth. That spoken enough about the power that we have inside of us, and how much it can really benefit and help us, even in financial success. In fact, consciousness will help us to really see the efforts, mistakes, miscalculations in our failures, and help us to move from that failure to said success that we see in the future. With deeper understanding of ourselves, of our situation, our plans, our actions, our investments, and without bias, mind you, we have more consciousness, we have a rather more awareness and deeper understanding. And when we actually connect all of this, when we remove emotion, when we put in more logic, more reasoning, are we not bound to be successful? Are we not bound to be successful? However, let's not confuse this, or let this go on to greed, or to expectations of more and more and more, because come on, that's just not That's not what we're trying to address here under financial growth and spirituality. Spirituality is contentment with what we have, with the will to work for more, happy and content if we do receive that, happy and content if we still don't receive that. It's not, I mean, the moment you're more aware and the moment you're really inside your soul, I think greed will cease to exist. So, definitely, spirituality, spiritual growth will help divert to financial growth.
Absolutely, and I strongly agree. And my strong opinion on the same would be a strong, strong yes. Spiritual growth not just fulfills your financial growth, but any other growth that you're seeking, because when you are spiritually progressed, you will have the clarity of mind, you will have a guidance, and you will be exactly where you need to be. That's the right place for you to be. And only spiritual progress can take you there. So, one may have $1 billion and still not be happy. One may have a couple of bucks to take care of the day and still be super happy. And in acceptance with the fact that I'm exactly where I need to be. So, how much of growth is what you need? Your soul will guide you. So, spiritual growth to the rescue.
Absolutely. Let me ask you one last question, or rather, I'm asking you a question now for a change. What drives a car?
The fuel?
The fuel, right? So, if your fuel tank reduces, is it going to be helpful if you're going to fix your car from every other aspect rather than the fuel?
Bang on. You have hit the bullseye. That's what it is.
Absolutely. So, our soul is our fuel. And just as much we need to eat every day, we also need to look after our soul that actually drives us every day.
So it actually wraps up to the fact that the question isn't can you balance work and spirituality? Rather, it is how invested you are spiritually to get the best out of your work, right?
Or you can even open it up to how you can use your own spirituality to do work, family, and much more in life. So it's not outward to inward, it's inward to outward.
Rumi had beautifully said, "There's a candle in your heart ready to be kindled. There's a void in your soul ready to be filled." You feel it, don't you? You have been listening to Our Quest. If you haven't already, please give us a quick review and rating on Apple Podcasts. And don't forget, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Links in description. See you next week. Same time, same place.